Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Marco Rubio doesn't just run rings around this hapless reporter. He knocks her socks off not only with TdA, but the truth about what's happening in South Africa. Let's dive in.
You've been very involved in the administration's efforts to crack down on this Venezuelan gang, TdA, that has been designated as a terror group by the U.S. Do you accept the intelligence community's assessment that the Venezuelan gang is not a proxy force of the Maduro government? That was the National Intelligence Council assessment.
Yeah, that's their assessment. They're wrong. In fact, the FBI agrees with me that they are. The FBI agrees that not only is TdA exported by the Venezuelan regime, but in fact, if you go back and see a TdA member, all the evidence is there and it's growing every day, was actually contracted to murder an opposition member, I believe in Chile, a few months ago. So one of the warnings out there by the FBI is not simply that TdA are a terrorist organization, but one that has already been operationalized to murder an opposition member in another country.
But that's a different thing than being a proxy force controlled by the Maduro government. Part of this is at the heart of the legal arguments the administration is having over its ability to continue to deport suspected gang members. That's why this assessment is so key. You completely reject that intelligence community finding?
Yeah, I agree 100% with the FBI's finding. This is a prison gang that the Venezuelan government has actively encouraged to leave the country. A prison gang that in some cases they've been in cooperation. And by the way, TdA members that have been returned to Venezuela on some of these planes that have gone back have been greeted like heroes at the airport. So we have no doubt, I have no doubt, and the FBI's made clear. I mean, this is the gang that they hired in order to murder an opposition member in another country. So there's no doubt in our mind and in my mind and in the FBI's assessment that this is a group that the regime in Venezuela uses not just to try to destabilize the United States, but to project power like they did by murdering a member of the opposition in Chile.
South Africa's president is traveling to the United States this week to meet with President Trump. The administration has prioritized bringing some white South Africans, Afrikaners, to the United States despite the increased restrictions on refugees. President Trump claims there's a genocide underway in South Africa. That's a legal determination. The State Department would make it. Are you trying to determine that now?
I will determine that these people are having their properties taken from them. They can call it whatever they want, but these are people that on the basis of their race are having their properties taken away from them and their lives being threatened and in some cases killed. These are people that applied and made these claims in their applications and seek to come to the United States in search of refuge. We've often been lectured by people all over the place about how the United States needs to continue to be a beacon for those who are oppressed abroad. Well, here's an example where we're doing that. So I don't understand why people are criticizing it. I think people should be celebrating it, and I think people should be supporting it.
Well, in fact, is there evidence of a genocide that you have?
They are in favor. I think there's evidence absolutely that people have been murdered, that people have been forcibly removed from their properties, both by the government in some cases because of a law they passed, but also because of independent groups encouraged by political parties inside of South Africa. So listen, to move here from half a world away and leave behind the only homeland you've ever known, that's not something people do lightly, especially people who have spent generations farming their land and developing their property. That's not something that you take lightly and do. These people are doing it for a reason. So we welcome them to the United States, and I think there may be more coming soon.
Marco just keeps on getting better and better at his game. And furthermore, he's doing a fantastic job as, I believe, Secretary of State, because this dude is out here reminding Americans that we have a huge, huge problem on our own soil with quite literal foreign gangs. He's talking about TdA, which originally the mandate was sort of to go after MS-13, which had been a huge problem here in the States. Well, now TdA is starting to act as a terrorist organization, and finally the United States is treating them the way they deserve. And now we even have a more important story that's now going to have some legal weight. We've actually got our first TdA member being treated as a terrorist. This is a huge step for America, so here are the details here. Jose Enrique Martinez Flores, also known as Chukwi, I'm never going to pronounce that correctly, is charged in the Southern District of Texas with conspiring to provide and providing material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization, as well as conspiracy and distribution of cocaine in Colombia intended for distribution in the United States. This is a huge step forward because now we're starting to treat members of these gangs as the terrorists as they indeed are, who are quite literally undermining and making it harder for Americans to get by. Never forget that in Aurora, Colorado, by the way, a very blue state now, we can't delude ourselves, it's not a purple state anymore, it's a blue state, that in Aurora, Colorado, TdA and took over multiple housing complexes to run as their front for their own organizations. And their Democrat governor and even, I think, some of the local mayors in the area said, this is nothing to worry about. This is not happening. It's not real. When a Democrat says that about blatant crime, what they're really telling is, oh, rich white liberals in their own gated communities, this isn't coming to you. We will protect you. Okay? Forget the people that are living in those communities now. All right? Forget about them. The rich white liberals who vote Democrat because they just feel that it's their solemn duty are voting without using any logic, any reason, any understanding of what it's like outside of their ivory towers. No wonder Americans have chosen Donald Trump. And by the way, this is a step in the right direction because it's not just going after criminal organizations, it's starting to go after the cartels. And when I say criminal organizations, I'm talking about the lower level ones like TdA, like MS-13. And the cartels, on the other hand, that's the big fish that we're wanting to fry here. Those are the guys that we're wanting to catch. That's the trade that we want to end. That's the big fish in this pond, and we're starting to catch some of the smaller ones, and we're eliminating them step by step, and we're starting in the right direction. And Marco Rubio is huge on that front. But there's been a new front opened up recently, and the mainstream media lost their minds over this when the Trump administration allowed some Afrikaners from South Africa who had had their homes repossessed by their, just for lack of a better word, their racist government. Which, by the way, we have to go on a small tangent here, and this is anecdotal, but I've known a handful of people from South Africa. And every single one of them has told me, and this started 15 years ago, okay? I am barely in my 30s now, and I started hearing these stories 15 years ago from people who said, we need to leave this place, it's going to collapse, and when it does, there's going to be a problem. Tantamount to genocide, even. Well, we've started to see the seeds being planted. I'm sure you've seen a couple of videos here and there of the second most popular party in South Africa screaming the words and singing the words, kill the farmer, kill the Boer. Okay, by the way, for the Americans that don't know, the Boers were the Dutch settlers of South Africa that sort of made their own little area, and they got really mad at the British when they came in, fought a couple of wars over it. The Boers lost, but they put up a really good fight. But what's happening in South Africa is a travesty, because we're seeing people genocided on the base of their race. And I hate using that word because it carries so much extra weight, but I truly believe we're starting to see the first fruits of that. I believe that it is finally starting to happen. It is something that's been predicted for a long time, and the rest of the world has been asleep. Well, no longer we're starting to treat people that are being treated improperly by their governments across the world, that if they want to come to the United States and have a chance at a better life, here's the opportunity to do so. We do indeed have a refugee program. It does exist, and it, for the most part, works pretty well. But it is ultimately saying that, yes, if you have legitimate reason to be somewhere else besides your own home country, there is opportunity for you here in the United States. By the way, if you look up the Afrikaners who have come here, they are all waving American flags. They are grateful to be in a country that actually wants them here. So that's the difference between illegal immigration and proper immigration, not to mention fake refugees and real refugees. We're starting to see the difference, and that's the difference that Trump 2.0 is making, and Marco Rubio is doing a fantastic job, and people at Face the Nation really just kind of have to sit there and take it. And that's a good thing. It's a long time coming, don't you think? Now let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Till then, y'all have a good one.